Yeah, so this one is it's kind of funny. We kind of call it the art of the MSL because we know that it's a very highly regulated industry itself. There are certain things that we can talk about. There are certain things that we're not allowed to talk about, especially unless we're asked specifically for that. We can't just go in and say, "Hey, did you see the data that was presented at the last Congress meeting?" That's technically not allowed. But if you have a conversation, all of a sudden you ask me, oh, I know that there was a Congress meeting that, came about recently. Can you tell me more? Like, was anything interesting that was presented? That is sort of like an invitation now saying, oh, yeah, we did present, some information. Would you like to see it? And of course, then they could present those slides that are pertinent as well. So from that perspective, that's sort of how you can validate that you're making progress or establishing those important relationships because now you're helping the physician who did not attend that meeting with information that hopefully they can use to educate themselves, but also when they're speaking with patients, they have that background information as well to make an informed decision whether this, therapeutic works or should be considered or not. So I think that's one. Other things that we do to sort of measure folks, I mean, at least in my company, we do something called like spectrum of beliefs, where we, we have these scientific pillars where we think that certain physicians should maybe believe in. And then we can establish like, okay, in speaking with them, where do we think they've kind of fall under the spectrum? Are they strongly disagree with this thought? Are they disagree, neutral, strongly agree, or strongly or agree or strongly agree? And then we kind of establish that at baseline. And then over time, because you're meeting with them, not just once, you're meeting with them over time. And each time you're meeting with them, you're giving them more information. So after a certain amount of time, now that they've gotten more data, you're having these additional conversations and you're now having, oh, you know what? 6 months ago, I talked to you and you felt this way about either the disease or the drug. Since then, more data has come out. And in your conversation, then you kind of know, like, oh, they've come around. They used to not believe in this, but now they do. And so that's another way. It's a little subjective, but we do measure, whether they do move along or not. But then we also understand that it's equally important to know why they didn't move along. It's okay because you can lead a horse to water. You can't necessarily make them drink, right? You're just educating. So you could say, this is the data, but they're like, hey, Robert, I understand what you're presenting to me, but I still don't believe it because there's still not enough data for me, or whatever the reason is. So our role is to capture that information. We bring it in internally and just say, hey, this is what the physicians are saying. Is there something that we could do? Is there another clinical trial? Is there a way that we can cut the data to help drive home this point? So we are sort of the extension of our internal medical strategy team, and we are the eyes and ears because we're listening it from physicians, from the ground, and we report this information back. So it's a really valuable sort of place to be for us because without us, the medical strategy team, they're not out there speaking with physicians. They have advisory boards and things like that, but it's a very small subset. But when you multiply sort of everything that we're doing, it becomes more of a bigger sort of value add, from that perspective.
Mhm. And Dr. Chang, just to clarify, for our readers, when you say Congress, you don't mean like the House of Representatives and right?
No, I don't. So depending on the therapeutic area that you're working with, there's certain organizations. So the ones that I think are of interest to us from the oncology side, you may hear of a Congress called ASCO. So you can use the term Congress or conference sort of synonymously. So that ASCO is the American Society of Clinical Oncology. They have like an annual meeting and it's over 3 or 4 or 3 to 5 days or something like that. And it's usually located in some city across the country. That's where they fly in essentially like all of the experts who are interested in oncology and the different types of diseases. And they're there to present their data, learn from each other, network. So you take that, and every different organizations has different size and groups, and they either have regional meetings or annual meetings. So that's where our field medical team typically kind of goes to. We'll go to the big national ones because that's where all of our physicians go to. And then certain regions may have smaller ones as well, and we'll also go to those things. And this is where most pharma companies actually present their data. This is sort of like it's peer reviewed. It's kind of in front of everyone, right? They either a podium oral presentation or it's a poster presentation. So this is when we say Congress, this is sort of like the bread and butter where we go to meet with our physicians and where our company itself will present data that hasn't been seen before. Like this is the latest on, you mentioned earlier our study, like the Renew study on neurofibroma. We presented that earlier this year, for the first time. And so there was a lot of interest around that. And that goes for every single therapeutic area that you can think of as well. So as new phase 3 data comes out, that's where you want one presented, and that's at a Congress. So not the House of Representatives for sure.